paintings. And so that's kind of my intention behind them, is to bring happiness and joy to the world, and to make people laugh and smile and feel like it brightened up their day. So that is what I've been doing. So today what you guys will need are, we're gonna do acrylic painting and we're gonna do watercolor painting. So supplies that includes are some brushes. I like to use bigger brushes, but I also have a variety of brushes that I'm gonna be kind of demonstrating today. Oh, Kenji has the art piece. Awesome. Yeah, so Kenji's piece, if you guys can see his screen, what I started doing was toning down the color and working on sepia paintings, just to kind of focus on the details and the subtle nuances within the piece, rather than color kind of being distracting sometimes. I really wanted to focus on capturing the texture and the essence of underwater creatures. So that's the one that Kenji's showing in his screen right now. Other things that you guys will need are acrylic paint. So I like to use the Michaels brand. I don't know if you guys can see it right there, but they're only about like 79 cents each and they're really cheap, but hopefully you guys have some sort of acrylic paint. And if you don't, we will be using watercolor paint. So I find that watercolor and acrylic are really similar. And in the past, I've even watered down acrylic paint to kind of create the same effect. So you're welcome to try that. And today is all about just exploring. If you don't have the materials that I'm going to be showing, you guys can either just follow along, take notes. I'm going to post this video later, so you can redo it if you like. But the idea is for you guys just to kind of get out a piece of paper. If you want to just draw something, that's totally fine. There really are no rules to making art, and that's exactly why I think it's going to be great today for everyone to just kind of make what's on your mind. Or I think today's theme is a volleyball theme. So I think it'll be a great way to kind of incorporate. I'll show you ways that you can incorporate other things as well. But hopefully it inspires you guys. I also like use a blow dryer because it makes it go a lot faster. So today we're going to be working with stencils. So if you guys, I'm going to use some stencils as an example, but they come from stock image silhouette photos. So right now you guys could be looking up some stock images that you like on Google. You can just search volleyball silhouettes if you want to make it a volleyball theme, but I've chosen some today. So for example, this is kind of the cutout version, but oh, we can't see it, dang it. I'll just go back to change my background. And so similar to this guy right here, right? So I kind of made one just to keep it going a little faster and to keep your attention a little bit better. But right now would be a good opportunity to search up some pictures that you like, and you can either start incorporating that today, or you can kind of do the most of the work today and then add that feature later on. All right, so do you think we're good to go, Kenji? Okay, alrighty. So this is kind of the base image that I'm working with today. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna teach you guys how to shade the background of this to kind of create an ombre or a gradient. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna do it in a circular motion. What I've done is I've lined up the ball to be right around here, and I wanna create the effect that the ball is glowing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make sure that as I'm moving around, I'm gonna keep that circular image with, or circular strokes with my brush, all right? So,
Coach Gared?
Yes.
Miss Bryn has a question. She asked, hold on one second. Which are we doing first?
I'm gonna be showing like both first, but right now we're gonna do acrylic. So I'm gonna demonstrate like one section of the acrylic and then demonstrate one section of watercolor and then kind of rotate between the two. So right now we're doing acrylic, and if you're planning on working with watercolors right now, what you could do is focus on some of the main aspects that are traditional for working in watercolor and acrylic. So if you're waiting for watercolor, we'll be there in a little bit, but you can still kind of pay attention or even start practicing drawing your silhouette. So it's up to you.
Bryn, did you still have a question, dear?
Yeah, I just have another one. Are we only supposed to draw the volleyball silhouette, or are we just doing our own thing too?
You can totally do your own thing. So I'm going to demonstrate the volleyball one, but if you find something that strikes your interest, then you are welcome to do that. So once again, today is just about creating something. I'm going to demonstrate one possible thing that you could make today. If you end up with a graphite pencil drawing, then that is great. It's up to you how you feel about what you want to make, and also it kind of depends on what supplies you have.
Coach Gared,
yes.
I feel like your team is giving you a hard time. Amber has also a question.
Okay.
My question is, do we have to have a silhouette?
No, you don't. You don't have to have anything, actually. That's the beauty of today. I'm going to demonstrate, and you can choose if you want to do that, or if you don't, it's up to you. So if you want to just work on blending colors, then that would be a success for today.
Okay, I think you're ready.
Okay, I'm ready. So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I'm starting out and getting my colors down. So obviously, I'm going to try to go for the effect of fading it like a white to yellow to a purple, to an orange, pink, and then all the way down to a red. So it's going to kind of have this effect where it gets darker as we go down. So right now, I'm going to focus on picking colors that will look good together. So like I said, I want to go light to dark. So what I'm going to do is put some white paint on my palette. You can use a paper plate. You could use a piece of cardboard, and you can even use a piece of paper. Okay. And I'm doing it somewhat big. This is a 20-inch painting. So I'm going to make sure that I have enough paint. Right now, what I want to do is the next color I think will look good will be yellow. So I'm going to move that around over here and just kind of have that waiting for me. And the third color that I think will be good will be a pink. And the cool thing about if you mix pink with yellow, you're going to get an orange tint. So I think that will satisfy what I want to do. All right, so here's one of the main tricks that you guys want to think about. When you're starting to blend colors, we want them to be very fluid. So we don't want them to start drying on the canvas right when you put it down. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that your brush is dipped in water. So I dipped my brush in water and I kind of wiped it on a paper towel. I'm using an actual towel today. And so that will also make it easier to blend your colors. So right now I'm just kind of making my white. And so I'm blending it together. I'm making sure there's not too much on the brush. Okay. And now I'm going to start kind of going around in a circle. Right. And I'm going to pull it a little bit bigger because I'm going to blend that with yellow. Right. So another trick is to make sure that the paint, there's not any globs. So you want to make sure that you're kind of going over everything and making it very smooth. All right. So I kind of have my oval shape, and I'm going to make sure that I keep this oval shape. So now I'm going to take a little bit of the yellow and I'm going to mix it into the white because I want it to go from a light yellow all the way to a dark yellow. So now I'm just going to go around the edge. And notice that I'm just not blending it yet. I'm just kind of putting it on the paper or on the canvas and going around and around. Okay. I can kind of go in and make it a little bit more yellow. So we should see it slowly getting darker. Okay. All right. So now the trick is, once I have those three colors, is how am I going to blend it together? So now I'm going to kind of focus on doing smaller brush strokes and kind of making sure that I keep that. I made 3 different colors. So I'm going to go back to the middle color, and I'm just going to make sure I'm kind of blending in those colors. Just slow and smooth and steady strokes in the shape that you want to make. So now I'm going to go back to some yellow, make it a little whiter. Slowly just go around. Okay, and then now I'm going to bring it in and do a little bit more white. Okay, something like that. Okay, so now that I have my yellow, I'm going to wash off my brush, but I'm just gonna grab a new one. So now I'm back to yellow, and I'm kind of trying to do it fast because I want to make sure that the paint doesn't dry too much before I try to blend in the next color. So now I'm just going back to my yellow. Okay, and this is going on there. Here. And I can blend it into the other colors. So now I'm going to start taking a little bit of pink or orange and blending that into yellow. So I'm getting this kind of orangey color. And slowly going around the edges. Okay, now I'm going to add more pink to make it brighter. I'm going to put a little water on my brush because I want to make sure that I can blend it, and the water helps us really blend things together. So now I'm going around. And if I just go back and forth over it, that's what's going to help the colors blend and mix together. Blend. Okay. So now I want it to be pretty dark. So I'm just going to kind of mix that in together. And we're going more pink. So sometimes you just go with what it looks like. So I didn't expect it to be so pink, but I like it. So I'm going to keep going with it. Make sure I go all the way across. Okay. And then now, just to kind of make sure that I'm finishing it up, I'm going to add a little bit of red to the pink. So if you're working with watercolor, you can do the exact same thing that I'm doing, making sure that you blend a lot of water into the paint. That way it'll make it really smooth and it will glide and it won't dry. What makes watercolor look good is when it's not drying on the paper, but the artist really did a good job making sure it all blends together. So now I'm just going to go on the edge here and finish that up. Okay, so I see a little bit of a problem, and that problem is that I didn't really blend in that bright red to the pink orange. So I'm going to go back and focus on that. Change my brush. Okay, and just kind of make sure that, okay, I'm going back and getting a little bit of that yellow. I'm going to pull a little of that color in there just so it kind of connects a little bit better. And now I'm working on kind of fixing that by just working the line back and forth all the way across. And then I'm still totally not satisfied because now I see another line. So part of the art process is realizing that you might not get it right on the first try, but the trick is to pinpoint kind of the area that needs to be improved and be willing to adjust what's around it, because sometimes we can't fix it without going back and adjusting it. All right, so that looks pretty good to me. Kind of add a little more here. Oops. And for the sake of time, I'm going to just do one more thing. I'm gonna do a little yellow. Sorry. Okay. And last part, just kind of clean up this area right here by making sure I have a lot of water. All right. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. I think it looks pretty decent. And so now just take this time to kind of clean up little areas that you find necessary. All right, and call that one a day. Okay, so that is, let me clear my palette. Okay, so that is what your kind of blending should start to look like. And obviously there's areas that I can improve upon, but that is something that I can touch up later if I feel like is necessary. And for the sake of time, I'm just gonna keep moving on. So now is for all of you watercolor fanatics. And what I've done is I've taken a piece of paper and I've taped it down. So I'm working with the painting on the wall. And so you guys might be working down below it. So either one works. It's actually probably better to look down at it. But here we go. So I have an idea that I'm gonna start blending in some blue. So I'm gonna make a blue background. So let's see. I'm gonna start by finding blue. And so the trick with watercolor is, oh, it's gonna be tough because it's gonna move. All right. The trick with watercolor is making sure, like we talked about, using enough water, but one of the main tricks, it's called wet on wet. So that means that you're applying watered down watercolor to a paper that you did a layer of water on. So ideally, when I do that, that means that I'm going to be making sure that I wet my paper first, and that's going to allow the watercolor to really move across the paper. So I'm putting, it's not really dripping, but I'm just putting a good amount in there. And so I'll kind of give you guys an idea. That is green, I want blue. I'll give you guys an idea of what that looks like. So if I water down my watercolor and I just kind of let it go here, it'll start to move. I'll do a big one just for fun. It'll start to move around on your paper, and that's kind of the consistency that we're looking for good watercolor. One thing that we want to keep in mind is that watercolor is produced by using a variety of layers, and it doesn't really come about on the first try. So you want to think about doing a lot of small washy layers, and that will kind of create the overall effect if you do that like 3 or 4 times. So right now I'm just kind of working on creating maybe like a smooth, maybe I'm thinking like a little bit like beach. So I can kind of notice that I'm creating some waves by just kind of the pressure that I apply to my brush. I can do fun things like cutting back, can't see it, but I can draw little lines in with my hand if I want to. The cool thing about watercolor is that you have some time to make your decisions before it dries on you. So that's the cool part about that. Right now, I don't really have a goal for this one. This part of the project is kind of including some abstract elements. So I am fine with messing up and just kind of creating and practicing and just kind of going for it. So I think over here, I'll start with the pink. Now I'm pulling across. So that looks pretty good. It's maybe a little hard to see. So I'm going to maybe add a little bit more color. And now I'm kind of still continuing to do the different gradients. And I'm kind of keeping it circular, but you're welcome to go up and down. You could go across. But I think for the sake of today, right now I'm using pink and I'm combining it with a teal and it makes purple. So I'm just gonna focus on creating my desired colors. Maybe I'll do some stripes. Gonna add a little bit more. So when I mentioned that the acrylic is really similar, you would follow the same kind of style if I was gonna do a sunset background. And it would be similar to this. So maybe now I wanna kind of wash away and make it fade out. So I'm just gonna start to kind of like go back and forth with my brush really lightly, kind of pull the color up. And so the good thing about a hair dryer, it might get loud for a second. Is that now that I've dried it a little bit, I can go back and start adding more. And whatever I did underneath won't be affected as much now that it's dry. So I'm just gonna create a crisscross pattern like this and have it fade out. So now I'm gonna do my little texture marks. So really right now I'm just kind of creating a background. All right. And for now, I'm just going to leave it. So if you're just working with watercolors, you can grab another piece of paper. You could try a whole new thing. For me, it's just about, because I'm not trying to paint an actual picture for today, I'm going to show a more kind of abstract technique that you can use. But for today, I'm just going to leave it as is for right now. So now I'm going to switch back to the acrylic. And so now I'm going to show you guys the technique that I implement in all of my paintings, which is the use of a stencil. And I'm just going to dry it real quick. So the trick to know if something's dry is you can hold it at an angle and you can see if anything kind of like pops out at you, like it's raised, if it's not completely dry. So that's my trick. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is you guys can do this with anything. And the cool thing is, this is what I do on all my pieces. I actually tape around everything that I wanna save and I cut it out with an X-Acto blade. So right now is going to be a little bit more of me kind of doing and showing the process. So you're welcome to take notes. You can do this on any wood piece. You could do it on your parents' coffee table if they allow you to. So just think about all the ways that you can incorporate this technique. But what we start off by doing is taping, and I just use kind of your simple tape. And so what it's doing is it's preserving the background. So the background's going to stay the same, and whatever I use to cut out on the tape, that is what's going to be revealed. So at this time, you can practice more watercolors. You can make a second acrylic painting, or you could continue your drawing. So what I'm going to do is I like to use stencils. So I took out this stencil here. I'm just going to paste it on. And I should probably do one more piece of tape to be safe. And so now the trick is to cut it out. So I'm just going to take my X-Acto blade around the edge. and I'm making sure that I'm pressing hard, but letting my wrist do the movement. For those of you who are a little bit younger, you should be having your parents do the cutting for you, just because there is a risk, but I just want to show you guys different ways, and this is the fastest way. So now I'm kind of making it here. Cutting. Oops. So if you're going to do this on anything else, you could do it on a wood board, you could do stripes, you could do patterns, you could cut out circles, you could do stencils, you could put a border on something. So there's actually a lot of great uses for using a tape stencil, and you don't even need to cut it out. You could just create shapes with the tape, and that'll work just as well. All right, so I'm halfway done with this. Now I'm gonna go to the back. So on my art Instagram, what I've been doing is revealing some cool process photos. So I'll tape over my paintings when I finish them and then cut out the animals. So the tape goes over the animals, just like the background here. And then I paint over it and do the background. And then I peel off the tape and I have a nice clean edge where the animal and the background meet. Last part. So you want to make sure that you're cutting and crossing over each and every edge. And here we go. Okay, so now I'm going to peel this off, and I like to do to kind of press it down just to make sure it stays. And now I want to make sure that I don't have any missed cuts. And now the fun part is the reveal, if I can get it. So now I'm going to take this and peel away the stencil. Kind of making sure. Oh, I'm sorry guys, I made a mistake and I didn't cut this part. Oops. All right. Now, the leg and this part here. Okay, so now that that's cut, you could also just draw in your stencil and paint it by hand, which works just as well, but I'm just trying to show you guys some fun techniques. So now I want to make sure that I'm choosing a contrasting color, and I don't want to add as much water because I don't want it to leak through. So I'm going to go with some purples and blacks and stuff like that. Okay, so now I'm getting my contrasting colors. So anything like blue or purple would work. And I think that I'll fade it back to pink just to bring a little bit more back to the piece. So now I gotta have my three colors here. And I'm gonna use a little bit of a drier brush and just maybe a little bit of water. Just go across. And I'm going to use those same shading techniques. Painting this part in. And then now I'm going to mix purple with a little bit of black, and black goes a long way. So we just want to add a little bit. You can't even see it, so I put too much black. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to blend any black into the purple. I'm just going to go in with purple. Kind of just go lightly over the blended part. Towel. Okay. And now I'm going to add some pink. Okay, and then finish it off with blending in the pink up at the top. Okay. And I think I'm pretty satisfied with that for now. I think it could be a little more pink. Just putting that in. All right, so now, right before the fun part, I notice that the pink is a little see-through, so I want to make sure I go back. Okay, and now what I can do is tear away the tape and reveal the background. That. All right, and last but not least, I'm going to use my stencil and just a little bit of white. And I'm going to make sure that I paint in the volleyball. And I'm going to put a little bit of gray just to give it an outline. And define it from the sun. All right, and that is the piece. So that is kind of the acrylic. So what I could have done is I could have just outlined it in pencil and then painted it in by hand. But for this effect, I think that with a little bit of supervision that you'll be able to create anything, and it kind of has a nice, neat, and clean effect. So I will display that later, but for right now, I'm going to finish up this piece. So I'm back here, and it looks okay. I can do different things, but I'm just going to leave it because I'm here to demonstrate the potential of what you can do and not to give you guys a set thing of what to do. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just place it off to the side for right now. And I could do the same thing where I put my silhouette on top. I could do like, I could paint flowers in and do a silhouette of a flower or anything like that. But I am going to do one more thing. So give me 1 second to set up. So this is a second cutout that I've done. And this is a fun way to kind of re-envision a traditional painting where we're using layers. So in this one, let me clear my palette. This one, I want to make sure that I'm just going to do a traditional fade from a lot of yellow and pink and kind of just go from there. So now that same idea where I'm kind of wetting the paper, I want it to flow. Wetting the paper. Oops. Okay. Wetting the paper. And so now I'm going to make sure that the girl kind of has this glow to her. So I'm just going to go around the edges. And the good thing about a cutout is that you don't have to worry about staying in the lines because the lines are already cut out. And the ball. Okay. So now I'm going to blend in a little bit of pink, kind of finish it off with some pink just to tie in the other piece that I made. So here we go. Okay. I can kind of use lines to create the misty effect. Watercolor. Now I'm just going to do the fun, exciting part of blow drying it. All right. Decent. So we're getting towards the end of this project, and I'm just going to lay this to the side. I'm going to place this back up here. Make sure it gets really smooth. Okay. So now, just give me 1 second to get up some tape. If you guys are following along, I'm going to ask you guys to share what you've created today. If you feel like it. So right now you can be doing some finishing touches if you're there. If you're just starting, then you can work on it after and hopefully be inspired by some of the things that we worked on today to continue making art, especially because it's really good for your brain. It passes the time. I often feel that time flies when I'm making art. Okay, one more piece of tape. So I would be using something like glue, but I don't have glue, so I'm going to use tape. And that's part of being an artist. You have to make do with what you have. And here we go. Now I'm going to take the second piece that I just created. Okay. I'm going to place it over this painting just by using a little bit of tape. And I've created my second piece of volleyball art for today. All right. So one thing that I kind of thought about when I was envisioning making this project is that you guys could do a variety of things. You could cut out from a piece of paper a silhouette or a stencil, but one really cool thing you could do is you could print out pictures of yourself playing volleyball, and you could make a collage with glue and some paper, and so you could have all your color pictures or black and white pictures behind you where the blue is, and then you could create the silhouette to put over it, so it's kind of like creating a window to look in through, like through the player. So that's just one other idea I kind of thought about, but you could do a variety of things. It could be newspaper, it could be any sorts of things. So I will put that one down, and I'll bring this one back. And now I'll open it up to any questions that you guys have regarding what we talked about today or in general.
Coach Jared, this is amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, it looks really good. And then for all the girls that are working on projects, can you guys take a picture of it and then email it to the club? So that way we could post it on our Instagram. Whether it looks great or not, it doesn't matter. Just go ahead and send it over to the club. And I'll type it again. But if you do have any questions, put in the chat so I could unmute you guys. Coach Jared, you got to do another one of these series, by the way. This was awesome.
Thank you.
I'm going to order
glad
stuff
that
online now, and I'm going
turned
to
out.
watch this again.
Thank
This
you. I
is
appreciate
great.
that.
Aaron says yes, do more. So since Aaron said yes, you have to do it, okay?
Oops. Of course, yeah. I was just trying